Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of On the Air with Tim and Ken. Ken, we're back at it. It's our 10th episode. Great to see you.
Tim, great to see you. I can't believe we're at episode 10.
I think we made the over by 9, so we're having a lot of fun. Let's thank everybody who's participated, who's helped us out with this, who's watched. I've gotten some feedback, and I know you have also, Ken.
Yeah, we do definitely want to thank everybody for watching and the feedback. You know, we really do appreciate it. We're having a lot of fun doing it. So we appreciate you giving us a few minutes of your time.
Yeah, we keep it light, no stress here. It's a stress-free zone. So thank you, everybody. And real quick, the disclaimer again, like I said, this is a stress-free zone. This is just for fun. Don't react to it in any other way. Just enjoy, and we appreciate you watching and our feedback. So tonight we got a couple of things we're going to talk about. We're going to get into a little bit of the Brad Marchand trade update because we talked about that earlier. We'll get into the latest and greatest from the NCAA settlement. Maybe we'll get a quick update on the topic from last time with LeBron, and then by the numbers, we're going to get into some U.S. Open golf that's coming up. So sit back, enjoy, and we hope you have fun with it. So I'll kick it off, Ken. I'll start with Brad Marchand. He's, as you know, about 6 weeks ago, he got traded to Florida. It was a conditional trade, meaning that the pick that the player, the Celtics, that the Bruins were going to get was conditioned upon how things played out with Florida and Brad Marchand. Well, since Florida's in the finals, that means they went well beyond 2 rounds of playoffs, and Brad Marchand has played in more than 50% of the games. Therefore, the Bruins won't get a second-round pick. They'll get a first-round pick for that trade. So I guess it's one of those trades where both teams won. Florida's in the finals.
I think you got to think both teams won, right? Like, the goal is to win. And draft picks are nice, and teams seem to love to have them. But I think you give up draft picks for a win. And the Florida seems to be dominating.
Yeah.
And we'll see if they can close it out for the second year in a row.
Yeah, no, it's great hockey. Before we get into the NCAA, I just want to mention we talked about the hockey there, and there's so much going on right now. You've got NHL Stanley Cup Finals. You got the NBA. You've got the U.S. Open golf tournament going on. You got the women's basketball league. You got football. I know I'm missing a few things there. You got Major League Baseball, obviously.
Yeah, baseball, soccer.
Yeah, so it goes on and on and on. And those are just some of the top ones. There's a lot of other things that we're going to get into down the road, but there's so much going on out there. There's always a lot going on. But right now, there's a lot going on. So we're going to try to narrow the focus tonight on just a few things. We like to talk
about Tim on Fox that Friday night they're doing a 1 year out on the World Cup.
Yeah.
So the World Cup, which is we said is the biggest sporting event in the world.
Yeah,
they're doing a 1 year countdown starting Friday night. So it's just everywhere,
It's everywhere.
And sports are everywhere.
And as I live in the Northeast, I drive by Gillette Stadium on occasion, and there's already several billboards out there advertising a year out for the World Cup soccer. They're going to host some of those games there at that venue next year. The billboards are already out over a year in advance. So
incredible.
It's going to be big. And then So moving on, let's get into what happened with the NCAA. They had a lawsuit going, a class action lawsuit going for many years against them. It was an antitrust lawsuit. Essentially, the student athletes wanted to get paid because they didn't have the ability to make any money while they were playing those sports. And there's a settlement in place. It has been appealed, but the appeal is pretty narrow. The settlement amount is $2.6 or $2.8 billion, something in that category, I believe. And
incredible amount of money.
Yep. And the way it's going to work, apparently, it's being worked out a lot of different ways, but generally, from what I've read, is it's going to go back to around 2016 or 2018 to pay the athletes back from that back point to today. Well, if you were an NCAA, student athlete, you might be getting some money. Particularly if you play basketball or football. It's not across the board even. It's going to be allocated, and that'll be an interesting formula. And I think they're going to base that off of the TV revenue that was generated by those schools, by those teams, and primarily, as we know, it's football and basketball, the March Madness and all that.
I mean, this is really like an interesting topic. I know it comes across maybe a little dry, but like as we've talked about since day one, we're fascinated by the money in sports, and the amount of money in college sports, is astronomical, and that they've come up with a $2.8 billion settlement.
Yeah.
Um, the schools have already spent that money. So it's going to be interesting to see where is
That's
this
right.
money going to come from, right? Like, and like, nobody's doubting any of these kids' athletic ability. But I don't know. I kind of think like they are getting paid already. They got most of them probably got full college scholarships. They're tax free.
Yep.
And that seems never to be brought up. I had to pay back student loans for 10 years
Yep. Yep.
after I went to Quinnipiac. Um, and I'm not talking about, people that are going pro and the best of the best, but, a lot of kids are getting full paid, college scholarships, going for free. And, yes, maybe they're the best at whatever they do. But, if it's not generating money for the school, how much more money do they want, and again, it's all going to come from us in some way or form, right? There, and we've talked about streaming and
Yep.
how all this revenue is being pushed down to the TV stuff. At some point, it's going to break. I really
Yeah.
believe it.
Two things going on there: the money, where it's going to come from, and who it's going to go to, and just to backtrack on the appeal on the 2.6 or 2.8 billion, whatever the final settlement number is, how that's allocated. That's what's being appealed. My understanding is, the formula they're using is not the appropriate one, because the argument goes, well, because of Title IX, where it's fairness to all athletes, male and female sports, the settlement should be fair across the board. So it's an interesting federal argument. So it may not change the total dollar amount, but it may change the allocation going back to 2016 and who gets what. But as of right now, the understanding was that it's going to be based off the revenue share from TV, and most of that was football and basketball. You raise a good point on the scholarships, and I don't know. I looked at the NCAA 30 years ago. I did a lot of research back then on this, and I did think the whole thing was ripe for this type of lawsuit. I never thought I'd ever see something like this as successful, because the NCAA was so strong, and they have been. But the money's gotten so big that they couldn't avoid it, and the athletes had a claim, and they settled it. So they must have had a very strong claim. And going forward, I don't know why you're not going to see someone major in basketball or major in football or major in other things, and it may translate to.
Yeah, I mean, choose. You can have your college scholarship, or you can have the cash equivalent. Represent the school as an employee. And not go to any classes. I mean, it's all going to be pushed down to the students. It's pretty clear. A lot of these colleges have hundreds of millions, if not billions, of endowment money. It's not coming out of that money.
Right.
It's coming out of the students who are going to pay for it, because there's either going to be less scholarship money available for them, or they're going to raise the prices, on the schools. So, maybe it should be an either or. You can take your college scholarship, or we'll give you the cash, and you can be an employee and show up and go to basketball practice or football practice, and because the students are the ones that are going to pay for this.
Yeah, it's going to come somewhere, and they're the only ones paying. So
They're the only ones paying.
so it's going to come from there.
The faculty's not giving up their money
No,
for this.
it may change it may change the dynamic of universities going forward over the next decade or so. When if an engineering student or chemistry major comes up with something in the classroom that's worthwhile, it can be monetized. I know they sign off on this. I know people that have been engineering students, and they sign off. But at some point that may change. We'll see where it goes. But Ken, like you said, now going forward, the schools they can spend up to, the first year is $20.5 million. That's outside of the scholarship money. They're going to limit the amount. They're not going to limit the scholarships per se. They're going to limit the team rosters. Same idea, I guess. So that's part of the settlement. They'll limit the team rosters, just like you have in pro sports. And but they in the first year they'll have $20.5 million that they can allocate to these student athletes, and the schools get to figure out. It's not like an equal. If you're on the team, you get X amount of percentage. It's that's to be determined. I think right now the schools have the right to figure out how that money gets allocated, and that's outside of the other NIL money for advertisers too, and it's outside of the scholarship money. So there's a
And the
lot there.
third party NIL, yeah, and the third party NIL money. So
Yeah.
it's there's a lot of money out there. Look, you
Yeah.
know,
So that
we'll
20
see.
million is going to come from somewhere every year. Every school. It
Well,
may
that's
not.
going to come from the reduced roster size, right? So if they used to give, you know, college scholarships to 100 football players, and now you can only do 90, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
10 positions, that's what they're using part of that money for. But yeah, that 20 million is coming from somebody.
Yeah. And that cap will grow and grow and grow. And it's
Mhm.
it's so it's a very fascinating lawsuit. Apparently, it's been settled. Like I said, that little appeal, I shouldn't say little appeal, but that appeal that's kind of narrow in scope as far as how the money gets allocated to the previous student athletes. That's up for the discussion in the courts. But I don't think the dollar amount's going to really change. I don't think that was a
No.
disputed amount. And the cap going forward. So now you have a cap in all kinds of sports. You have cap, so you can have caps everywhere in sports. You'll get down to the high school level, and it'll get there. Not in my lifetime, but it'll get there. So in any event, um, I want to follow up. You did a great presentation. You talked about in LeBron James. I mean, you talked about him last time we met, and the end of June's going to approach quickly, and there's a hard deadline there.
Well, yeah. So, we did LeBron last week. We're recording this about a week later.
Yeah,
The good news for Knicks fans is they still don't have a head coach. So that still gives LeBron, a chance to weigh in. Again, no indication that
right.
LeBron's going to be a free agent, going to choose that, is thinking about New York, wants to travel to New York. But we'll bring up a couple more points, just to keep the conversation going until a decision's been made. There's been a lot of talk this week about who the Knicks coach is going to be. And the biggest name out there is Jason Kidd, who
Yeah,
happens to be the coach of Dallas. Dallas has apparently today denied permission. But all the talk about why Jason would come to New York over Dallas is the East is weaker than the West, and New York is ready to go to the finals. We say the same things to LeBron. The East is weaker. The Knicks are there ready to go.
yep.
Now, we don't have an answer of how we're going to get it, you go from 52 million to 8 million, but that's
Right.
something he's going to have to give into. The Lakers have lost 4 of the last 5 years, and to play your home games in Madison Square Garden, it's one of the few special buildings out there still, right? You think of a Fenway Park, right? You think of
Yeah.
a Wrigley Field, right? You think of a Lambeau Field. You think of some of these historic buildings that, everything's being replaced. These buildings are not. These buildings don't have corporate sponsors. LeBron's 24-9 in Madison Square Garden. He's
Hmm.
had 2 games over 50 points. LeBron, remember those games. I am sure the Garden was rocking,
Sure.
going crazy, And if I've been fortunate to go to a couple of games. I've been to a lot of sporting events at Madison Square Garden, but fortunate to go to a couple of NBA games. And it's the mixture of people. It's, you've got the business people, you've got the blue collar people, everybody there. It's really a unique place to go watch an NBA game. Um, I think my best argument is still call Mark Messier.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
did what I'm asking you to do. Come to New York, break the 50-year streak. Call him, see, ask him if it was worth it. How great was it to be part of something where you broke a 50-year streak? They haven't even won in LeBron's lifetime, right? LeBron's not 50.
Right. Right. Right.
So they haven't to do something that hasn't been done in your lifetime. I still think it's a great story. I think the chances of it happening are slim to none,
No
but
one's been talking about it other than you, really. No,
no, nobody's everybody thinks, oh, it's gonna be Kevin Durant or Giannis coming to New York. But you gotta trade half the team to do that.
right.
This only works because as best as we can understand, LeBron could elect to become a free agent and
Yep.
sign anywhere for any amount of money.
Yep. It's a
So
unique situation. The timing is just incredibly. The timing is right there. He's got 2.5 weeks to make that move. If all
it's
he's
the
doing is
right
raise his hand, and they'll pick him up and give him the keys to the city.
if he were to come to New York, go out leaving the NBA, his career with a win in New York. I don't know how you wouldn't say he's the GOAT for all time. Nobody could top that. You couldn't break that.
So,
Um,
well, we haven't
so
heard back from him
that's
yet.
my last pitch.
Well, we'll
You know,
see. It might be more if they get some
yeah,
rumors going that way in the next
no, oh
couple of weeks.
no, no, not LeBron. Sorry, I was just hoping. Like no update.
Yeah, I
But
checked the chat box. I don't see anything coming in, but from him. So we'll keep an eye on it. 2.5 weeks to go. You never know.
look, we're having some fun. You want to believe it would be a fantastic story. I am not delusional. Think that it's going to happen, but it's been fun to talk about, and it really is tailor made for him to come now. You wouldn't have to play 40 minutes. You've got a team that's 8-9 deep. You just need to be healthy for the playoffs,
Yeah.
and then make that historical run.
You'll be the talk of the town. Well, speaking of fun, this weekend, starting tomorrow, golf U.S. Open. Now they just had. I just watched some of the Canadian Open before we get to the U.S. Open last weekend. It was really fascinating. I don't know if you caught it, but he went into a playoff. Ryan Fox won it over Sam Burns, but it was a 4-hole playoff. And the format was, if you didn't see it, they played the 18th hole until there was a winner. And they ended up playing it 4 times. Now, the 18th hole there was a really neat, long 589 yard or something like that. Par 5, tee shot over traps, risk reward, second shot over water if you go for the green and 2. And they played it 4 times. Finally, we had a winner. It was great for the fans because they didn't have to run up and down the course and run all. They just stayed put. Saw that play 4 times, once in regulation and 4 more. And what was really neat about the whole thing, Ken, was after the second playoff time playing that hole, the greens crew changed the cup location from the back of the green, the huge green, from the back of the green to the front of the green. And the front of the green is a big drop off. And that was influential on the outcome of that tournament. I don't know if you saw it. It was certainly influential because
I did. I
yeah,
did see it. It did impact the end.
yeah, yeah. And it was just a great way to mix it up. And I didn't know if they did it because the green was getting a little bit worn down, beaten down around the cup because of all the play, or just to change it up. But they did it. It was great.
I think they had predetermined that they were going to do this if it went past the second playoff hole, because they wanted to give the players a different look, the fans a different look. It does. Watched enough golf sometimes if they're playing the same hole in the same pin position, to watch them play it 3, 4, 5 times sometimes is
Yeah,
a little robotic, and Sam Burns, who was in control on the third playoff hole when they had switched the pin to the front,
yeah,
spun it off the green and really
yeah,
made a heck of an up and down to get to the fourth hole. So it was unique. I think it worked because of that kind of hole where it's risk reward.
yeah,
Fox hit a career shot on the
yeah,
fourth playoff hole,
yeah.
to win the tournament. Um,
So it was a great finish. It was a great hour of golf or whatever it took. It was fantastic.
it was fantastic.
So it was a great, and it was Sunday night, so I caught that and really enjoyed it. And I like the fact that they changed the cup like that. That worked out really well on that particular time and hole. So, all right, getting into what we got ahead of us this week, starting tomorrow, U.S. Golf at Oakmont. What's going to be the story? Is it going to be the winner? Who's going to win, the course or the players? Who's going to win
The
that?
course, the course is going to win. It's always been known to be one of the toughest venues.
Yeah,
Um, The one thing it has lost a lot. It's one of the similar to the old Northeast courses. The only thing is because of storms over the last decade, they've lost a lot of the big trees.
Okay.
But it's long. The rough is heavy. The greens are very difficult to putt. It's really good. There may be some rain over the weekend
Yeah.
too. The course, it's one tough course, so it'll be. It's usually a really good golfer. There's not usually a golfer that wins there that is kind of lucked his way in, or you would expect a bigger name playing pretty well to be there in the end. I think John Rahm's played well. You saw him come up with a fight at the
Yeah.
PGA. Bryson, Scotty, the big three right now.
Sure.
Rory can't seem to find the fairway. I'm not sure that if this is the golf course where he's going to find it,
Yeah.
since
This
the
is not the time to be
Masters, which
messing
is
around with
fine.
the driver. I mean, you got to hit the
No,
fairway. And, before
um,
we get to our picks, though, let's go back and because we watched a little bit or we paid attention to the qualifying for this. That's really interesting. It doesn't get if you watch it, I think it's on the Golf Channel, but the qualifying rounds all around the country to enter the qualifying rounds, you have to be under you have to be a .4 handicap, less than one. So you have to be an excellent golfer. You got to put your $200 up, and you get into a local qualifying round. And I think those are two rounds, and then you
I
advance.
think those are I think those are 18 hole
Okay,
local,
18. Okay, and then and
and
then
then
then there's another round of
the sectional ones that would get you into the Open is referred to as the longest day in golf. It's 36 holes.
yeah,
Um, Usually and you have a lot of tour players that haven't qualified for the Open
yeah,
that have to go through. They're exempt from local qualifying, but get into the sectional. And one of the bigger events for U.S. Open qualifying is in Columbus, Ohio, because qualifying is usually the Monday after the Memorial, where
yeah.
Jack's tournament is. And you had Max Homa and Cameron Young and Ricky Fowler, and all in a playoff for one spot.
Yeah, there were five of them for
They
that one spot. There were five
There's
guys for that
five of
one.
them for one spot.
Big names
Um,
too.
and apparently Max didn't get along with his caddy after the final at the Memorial, so he carried his own bag for 36 holes,
Yeah,
and
so that finals the Memorial Sunday. The qualifying is Monday.
finds Monday.
So
36 holes, long day.
he's carrying his own bag,
Carried
36
carried
holes,
his own bag,
and he
and
missed on the playoff.
Cameron got the last spot,
Yeah, so
and we'll see,
interesting.
we'll see how it all plays out beginning tomorrow.
Before we get into
So
our picks and so forth, we mentioned the golf course. I just got to. This is really off the beaten path, and this is stupid trivia, but the Oakmont Golf Course has actually been named a National Historic Landmark. Okay, so there's some useless information for you. And the first National Historic Landmark was the Cedar Post, placed by Lewis and Clark in 1804. It wasn't named a national landmark in 1804, but eventually it got replaced, and then Congress named it. But so there's some useless information for you. That golf course is actually a National Historic Landmark. Like Ken said, it's over 100 years old. It's what 7,200 yards. The grass is taller than the rough is taller than me. The greens are sharp, and you got to be on your game, and you got to grind it out. You got to to be in contention on Sunday afternoon on this thing. So that being said, did you want to make any picks?
you go first. I'll
All right, I'm going to go off, not really off the board, but kind of a fan favorite for me, I guess. And he's been playing well, and he's a grinder. I'm going to go with Shane Lowry. He's a grinder. He doesn't give up. The tournament could be over. He's still going to be playing. He seems to have fun out there, and he's got some strength to him. And I don't think he would be on anyone's top pick, but I'm going to go with Shane Lowry.
I think it's a great pick.
All
I'm
right.
gonna go with somebody that's been playing a little better lately. That's due to make a run. I'm gonna go with Jordan Spieth.
Oh, he's been coming back. You're right. He's been
He's been playing a little better. He hasn't won in a while. He's starting to find his game a little bit.
Yeah.
So, I know, right, Scotty and Rom are going to be the favorites with Bryson, but I like your Shane Lowry pick, but I think it's time Jordan gets back into it. It's a Ryder Cup year.
See
It's
if he can
time.
put it
He
together.
was at the top. He was at the top of the rankings there for a while,
Yeah.
and at the
Yeah,
top,
sure was.
and then he kind of lost his game. So he's been playing better. I'm gonna go with Jordan.
And then I heard from two viewers. One was Kevin from Brookline, and he gave me an interesting pick. He picked Justin Rose, interesting pick there. And I heard from Tom from Walpole, Massachusetts, and Tom was going with John Rahm. He thought John Rahm was coming together and motivated, and he thought John Rahm had a great shot. So
It's all good picks. It's gonna take a player like that too.
and before
You
we are kind of running out of time here again, as we tend to. Before we cut loose, two things. Just a very happy birthday to one of our viewers, Mary, and a special Father's Day wish to a gentleman down in the Carolinas, Mr. Cardizano. I know he watches this, so happy Father's Day to him. And Ken, thank you.
Yep. Happy birthday, Mary. Happy Father's Day.
Great.
And listen, thanks everybody for watching. We really do appreciate your time, and we've had a lot of fun doing this.
Yeah.
Now, don't bet on our picks.
No. I haven't been close. Don't bet against me. You do much better. Take whatever I pick and thank me and go the other way. But you'll do much better. Thanks, Ken.
All right.
Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks, Tim. Have a good night.
Congrats.